Welcome to the Crown Sports Podcast. We are very excited to be talking Utah High School athletics with you. I'm your host, Brad Richins.
And I'm your co-host, Niko, Klus, along with our producer, Braun, Butterfield.
An intriguing matchup that we have out of the many intriguing matchups this Saturday down in Orem High School in the 3A playoffs is Emory and South Summit. So I know what you're thinking, Brad, this is the same song and dance we've had the last few years, but I find it interesting, fascinating, and yes, intriguing. So Emory comes in as the fourth seed, Niko, in Region 15, because San Juan, Grand, and Emory, they were all in a cluster there, and Emory beat San Juan last Friday, San Juan beat Grand, and then Grand and Emory tied, coin flip, Emory wins. So they're the fourth seed, and by default, they play South Summit. They come in the second seed from Region 13. Emory finished with the 6-6 record in region, South Summit with the 5-3 record, and they both sport 14-7 overall records. And these two teams have played each other 5 times in the last 8 postseasons, dating all the way back to 2011, and South Summit has won 3 of those 5 matchups. These two teams played each other last year in the playing game at Wasatch High School. We were both there, and South Summit won by 6. They beat Emory 80-74. It was a high-scoring affair. The last 2 regular season meetings, Emory's gotten the best of the Wildcats both times, and actually this year, earlier, about 2 months ago, I think it was, the Spartans came up to Camas this year and beat the brakes off the South Summit 69-53, and Kyson Stilson had 22 to lead the way in that one. But the point is that these two teams are very, very familiar. Coach Hatch and Coach Jeffs know each other and each other's styles of play. They know how each other plays. And the Spartans just got one of their best shooters, Cade Brazier, back. He was nursing an injury. I don't know what happened, but they got him back. He's been back for the last 2 weeks or so. So him, Kyson Stilson, and Brax Jensen are very reliable guards who like to drive and kick to open shooters. They're both very senior heavy, and they're both 6-4 in their last 10 games, so they've kind of been topsy-turvy. They're coming in not playing their absolute best. But what's really interesting to me is that it'll be interesting to see if Emory goes man-to-man, like earlier against South Summit, because I think that kind of maybe threw Coach Hatch off, because they're usually in that 2-3 zone. So we'll see if they do that, if they play their 2-3 zone. And for South Summit, Kale Atkinson's been averaging 10 points per game the last 4 games. They'll have to get him going offensively, as well as Jake Rydalch, who's their best perimeter shooter. And just overall, it'll be compelling to see if South Summit depends on their big men for offense more than they usually do, because usually in this matchup, South Summit and Emory both lean on their guards for their overall production on the court. But last year in the playing game, South Summit just went into Bruce Mitchell all game, and he had like 23 points, and he had his way offensively the whole game.
You got to feed the beast.
And so Emory, as good as their guards are and as good as they like to get up and push the ball, Emory in their system has almost never had a big guy to play down low and defend down low. So if Coach Hatch decides to try and exploit that the best he can, then that'll be interesting, and that may pay dividends for the Wildcats. But, at the end of the day, it'll just be cool to watch the chess match between 2 coaches and see what happens.
In a chess match where all Emory does is rely on the 3.
Yep, it's all run and gun.
It's ride and die. They live by it, they die by it. They can't really do anything else. They don't really drive to the lane. I don't recall them trying to lay up in last year's playing game once. They shot 3s the entire game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if they're on, they're on. But if they're off, it's going to be a long day for them.
If they're off, they can lose to anybody, but when they're on, they can beat anybody.
And that's what happened up here when they played South Summit. They were on fire. They couldn't miss a shot.
Yep.
It showed in the box score because they beat the crap out of them.
Mm-hmm. So, that's my intriguing matchup this week out of the many that are there.
My intriguing matchup is going to be San Juan versus Providence Hall.
That is going to be a good game.
Mostly because San Juan is a 6 seed.
Yep.
Which they could have been a 3rd or a 2 seed, given the different outcome of their last 2 games that they lost, which bumped them clear down to 6.
It's crazy. It's like the West.
Is going to give Providence Hall, I think, a little bit of trouble. Just because, yes, they've played well all year, but one thing they lack is experience in the playoffs. Where San Juan might be able to exploit that, where emotions are running high, and they might be able to pull off a win here against a very good Providence Hall team. Even though, Providence Hall's played well, I'd like to see them win, but San Juan brings a very intriguing style of play to the playoffs as a 6 seed that not everyone's particularly going to be looking for, but they play well, and no one really knows. Everyone knows that, but no one really saw them coming in as a 6 seed.
No.
So it's going to be interesting to see that game and how it plays out.
Well, your interesting intriguing matchup leads to the team I have on upset alert. And Niko, I hate to do this. I hate to pick San Juan over Providence Hall. And I'm not happy to say this because the Patriots, like you said, have had a fantastic season. They're going into state ranked third in 3A. They've won 14 out of their last 15. They've won 11 straight. They didn't lose a game in region, 12-0.
After they played South Summit up here, they went on a tear.
And they 18-3 overall record. That's spectacular. Not to mention, the Sherwood brothers, Marcus Sherwood, still averaging a double-double with 21 and 11, and his brother.
Amazing in 3A basketball.
And his freshman brother, Merrick Sherwood, is a sharpshooter, and he's been averaging 20-plus his last 2 games, so he's starting to gain confidence as a freshman. That's scary. But like you said, there's just something about San Juan and their style of play. I know they've lost 3 straight, but they're fast, they're athletic, and they have beaten top teams like Emory, South Sevier, and Manti. They have 5 players who average over 8 and 4 players who have hit at least 25 threes on the season. I watched them a little last week on Friday against Emory, and they like to get out in transition, they like to run, they like to shoot the 3 ball, really like any team in that region.
Like to push the pace.
And, it'll be a really good matchup. I love Providence Hall, I really do, but if there will be a major upset this week, I'm taking the Broncos to take down the Pats.
That's an interesting take for you, seeing as how much we've liked Providence Hall this year thus far.
And that felt weird to me to say because, being a Patriots fan, just saying it made me think taking the Denver Broncos taking down the Pats. I'd never say
their
that.
Their rain will fall at one point. my upset, strictly based off one team here, isn't saying the other team is that much better, but South Sevier has been 4-4 since mid-January, and they're playing Juab. Now, Juab hasn't played very well at all, but they're coming in as a 4 seed, and we both saw what they did last year in the playing game.
Beat Summit Academy.
To beat Summit Academy, who was the 2nd seed. And they came in there and they beat the crap out of them.
Mm-hmm.
Not really beat the crap out of them. They took them to overtime and then beat the crap out of them. But South Sevier is 4-4 since mid-January. So that alone makes me think I don't know if they've given up or what's going on, the lack of confidence in the shooting. But even watching the game last week with Richfield and South Sevier, they were getting blown out. And it wasn't even a game like it typically is. And then just watching Richfield, they just ran up and down the court on them. And South Sevier didn't do much to stop them. So Juab might have seen that and might have given themselves a little bit of hope. And they might come out to play come Saturday.
Well, that's an interesting point because South Sevier does struggle on the road. And they got throttled against Richfield. Richfield is in control that whole game.
And it's just down the road, so it's not like it was a 2-hour away game.
So
it was a hop, skip, and a jump
away. Yeah, Juab would be a tough matchup for anyone, especially the Rams. So we got our intriguing matchup. We got our upset alert. And now my dark horse, Niko, for the tournament is the Delta Rabbits.
The Rabbits again.
The Rabbits of Delta again. I know. I can't get off the bandwagon. So they finished second in Region 14, of course, second to the Patriots. They have a 13-7 overall record, but they've won 5 of their last 6. They did beat Richfield on the road earlier in the season. Tough place to play. Derek Smith is still 3rd in the state overall in points per game with just over 26. But how far they go will depend on him and Jager Springer and Jamin Braun hitting open shots and getting going. So especially Springer, because in all 7 of their losses this season, he's only averaging 8 points per game.
Well, that's the key there. You got to hold him under 8.
Yeah, so if you're coaching against the Rabbits, you let Derek Smith get his, but you got to shut down Springer. But Springer has to get going. He has to hit shots from the outside. But if he doesn't, we could see an early exit this season from them in the tournament. But, however, I think they'll hit their stride just like they did last year, and they'll make some noise beginning this Saturday. So they're my dark horse going into this weekend.
I don't know if I agree with that one this time. I mean, it was good last year, but I don't know if they can do it 2 times in a row.
It'll just depend on their guard play.
But you've been on the bandwagon for a while now.
I have. I can't get off.
I'm gonna go with Judge.
Judge Memorial, huh?
They're probably they have to play tomorrow on Tuesday
against Grantsville
to see who is 3rd and 4th in region. I think they'll win that game. I don't know if they're gonna get their best player back.
That'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting to see. But regardless of that, watching Judge play South Summit last week, they should have won.
Yes. Yep.
Not saying, the outcome was the outcome.
Yep.
But Judge played great basketball, played great defense, great offense. They're well disciplined, they're well coached, and they all want to play. Every kid on that bench was excited about the whole game. Every kid playing was excited about anything that happened during that game. It didn't matter if it was a layup, a foul, anything. They were ready to play.
And didn't they make the tournament last year, so they'll be ready to go.
And it'll be exciting for them because they don't have any pressure on them in order to do anything in this tournament. So they're just going to come in playing loose, and that's what we got. Maybe making some moves in this year's tournament.
Going to a sporting event? Don't look like the rest. At TeeTops, you can customize your shirts and apparel with the best. TeeTops. Give them a call at 435-640-6321.
Joining us on the phone now is Coach Matthews, who is the head basketball coach of the Morgan Trojans. Morgan finished first place in Region 13 with an 8-0 record and is currently ranked second in the 3A rankings, heading into the state tournament this weekend down at Orem High School in Utah County. Coach, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no worries. We're excited to get to have you on because you obviously know what you're doing. You've taken region the last 2 years, first place in Region 13. But to start off, tell us a little bit about how you got started coaching, where you started, how old you were, and kind of what got you hooked into this coaching gig.
Well, I've always been, I played basketball in high school, always been interested in athletics. I was going into education, and an opportunity arose in Brigham City, where I was living at the time, with girls basketball. I knew the head coach, and actually my wife knew the head coach, and I got a job as a sophomore girls basketball coach there in Brigham City at Box Elder. Coached 2 years there, and then I got a teaching job here in Morgan about 18 years ago, and I became the boys freshman coach. And then I moved, and the sophomore boys coach took over the next year as the varsity girls coach, so I went over and was his JV coach. And after about 5 or 6 years, I took over the girls program, coached there for 6 years about, and then for this is my 5th year as the boys coach here in Morgan, so a lot of good opportunities.
A lot of good opportunities. And who would you say that you try to mold your coaching ability after? Is there a certain coach in college or professionally that you look up to and try to implement them, try to mirror them?
No, not really. I'm kind of old school. My high school basketball coach, Coach Ken Parks, he was an amazing coach. So a lot of the stuff I do kind of emulates him, but Jim Wiscombe, who was the coach before me, actually retired after back-to-back state championships. He just was an incredible coach. So I tend to do a lot of the things he did, a lot of team-oriented motion offense, get everyone involved, not as much as this one-on-one, do it your own thing kind of basketball. And so probably those two individuals.
And coach, there's a I guess you can say there's a lot of motives that can be kind of motivate people as to why they coach or why they want to coach well. It could be individual success or team success. But how much would you say a love for the sport plays into quality coaching? Because all these things, I mean, and even all these things are important, being like implementing yourself into the lives of these kids who you grow relationships with. But how much would you say a love for the sport actually plays into wanting to be a good coach?
Oh, I think it's really important. I mean, if you don't love the sport you're coaching, it's hard to be successful. You're not going to put enough time into it. Your schemes and your philosophy isn't going to be worth the hill of beans, I don't think, if you don't enjoy basketball. So that plays a huge part for me, because I love basketball. I think it's the best sport out there. So yeah, gotta love it.
And we've watched you the last few years, just commentating games and whatnot, and your team is very, very disciplined, and they run the offense you want to run, they run the defense that you want to run. How do you keep these kids motivated and wanting to do, keep it team oriented and not make it about one person?
I think it's because we do in practice. We constantly are pushing team. I don't think not once this year have I told any one kid that you can't shoot the ball. I don't want you shooting it here. You've got to get it to this kid. But because of the philosophy that we have as a program, the culture of move the ball around, and something I say all the time to my kids is, I want kids on the floor that are going to make everyone around them better. And I don't think that's, well, I need the player who can dribble around and just shoot all the shots and try to score. That's who can get their teammates open, who can set good screens and get their teammates good shots. Because our team is, I think we're known for, getting everyone quality shots, not just one kid. I think that's why it's hard to game plan against us, because we don't run our offense around one player.
So would you say selflessness is the biggest contributor to your success the last few years, taking first in region?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Well, and also, I mean, we've had good athletes. We've had good basketball players who work hard. They work hard in practice. They work hard in games. They enjoy winning, but they also enjoy seeing their teammates succeed. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
Like you said, it's always a big factor, having everyone engaged and knowing their role and knowing their part in the team. So last year you had your main scorer. Cade Russell was kind of your main scorer. You kind of ran the offense for him. He was your point guard. How would you?
Right.
And this year you have Trey Miles has kind of stepped into that leading scorer role. How was his performance on the offensive end, assisting and getting your team confidence on the floor as a whole?
The way Trey, by far our best basketball player, shooter, scorer. But it's funny, we don't necessarily run our offense to him. I mean, we run a flex offense, and I've never said, okay, Trey, you need to start here so that you can get that flex cut layup or get that down screen for that wide open jump shot on the elbow. But it seems like he always ends up getting open on those. But our team definitely goes as he goes. I mean, we've won a lot of games where he's struggled, but we definitely play better when he is shooting well. Like our first game against Judge. Judge is an incredibly talented team, and we just ran away in the fourth quarter because Trey, I think he had 32 points that game. He just couldn't miss. And when he gets on like that, it's fun to watch.
So I was looking up your schedule, and the beginning of the year didn't start off that great. I'm sure not as great as you wanted to, but since about the middle of December, you've gone 12-1, and that one loss coming to Layton Christian, who's a very good basketball team. What changed? What changed in the kids in order, that's a good winning streak you have going there.
Yeah, I think we figured out what was going to make this team successful. I think at the first of the year, they were still trying to figure out each other. We were making early season mistakes. A lot of the losses were close losses. Richfield was 2 points. I think Delta was 4. Maple Mountain, it was a close game. They ended up winning by 8 or so. I think it was just a lot of little things, nothing major. It was just we figured out how to pull away in the fourth quarter. Early in the year, our fourth quarters were horrendous. We just could not finish our free throws, our turnovers, so we really worked on ending games better, and that was a big factor in winning more games late.
So, Coach, how would you say depth plays a role in your success? Because Miles kind of carries the load offensively, but then you got Caleb Calderwood who can easily hold his own down low, and he can put up points as well. And then you got Seth Hadley, Sam Hansen, Tyson Hurd, and Carter Thacker, hit a few big buckets against South Summit last week or a few weeks ago to kind of ice the game. How much would you say depth it plays a part in success? Because it can be a different person every single night.
Oh yeah, that's one of the greatest strengths for this team right now. most nights I go 9 and I can go all the way 10 or 11 and feel comfortable with who I have out there. I kind of feel bad sometimes for those kids that are 10 and 11, because for a lot of these other teams, they could be starting and playing a ton. That's one of the issues I've had, is finding minutes for these kids. Carter Thackeray has been shooting just as good as anyone, probably better lately. He's just so good around the basket and can stretch them all the way out to the 3. So yeah, any given night, I've got 6 or 7 kids that can carry the team. So that's really nice, the depth that this team has.
And just going back to last year's tournament compared to this year's, just starting off, what's it going to take for your team to really turn the corner to reach the state title game and ultimately win a state title?
I think the main thing that this team has going for it that last year didn't was that these guys have been there now. Last year, the 3 years before, we didn't even make the state tournament. They hadn't even gotten there. So it was a totally new experience, and that really affected us, that game against Manti. I mean, even though we were in the game and I thought we had plenty of opportunities to win that game, I think we started the game tentative. And I really don't see our kids this year doing that, just because they've had state playoff experience. They've been there, and they kind of know what to expect. So that would be the main difference.
So going into Saturday, Coach, you play the Carbon Dinos, who are the 5th seed in Region 14. But talking to a lot of coaches around the state, they really the playing game isn't their favorite, the playing week. It's getting there into the quarterfinals. It's the big thing, so this week is a lot of stress. Is there any added pressure going into the playing game for you? And if so, how do you cope with that, and how do you get your players to kind of get past that?
I try not to put any added pressure on the kids. I don't talk about it much. We're trying to treat it just as just another game. We're not changing how we practice. We're not changing how we talk about the team we're playing against. And hopefully that will make the kids, or help the kids understand that, this is just another game. If we go in and play like we have been playing, then we feel like we have a pretty good shot at winning. I've coached number 1 seeds going into this playing game, and I've lost. I've got an assistant coach that played in a game. They were 21-0 going into that game, and they lost. So we've got a lot of experience of being on the wrong end. So we really try hard to make sure the kids stay focused and not make it as seem as a big of a game as it really is, and just keep it in perspective.
Well, Coach, we definitely hope that you can get your players all, like you said, don't just treat it like a regular game, and we look forward to watching your team perform this Saturday. You have the early start, right? 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday. Yep. So we thank you for coming, taking your time out of your busy schedule to talk to us today, and we wish you good luck against Carbon and going into the state playoffs.
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening into this week's episode. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. You can now listen to us every week on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. It's as easy as saying, "Hey Siri, search Crown Sports in podcast."
We are on Instagram at Crown Sports Podcast and on Twitter at Crown Sports Pod. Production by Braun Butterfield. Artwork by TeeTops. Music by Niko, Klus, and Braun Butterfield.